In a world where kindness is often mistaken for weakness, the wicked take advantage of the trusting. It's a tale as old as time, and one that would play out in the most unexpected way in the halls of a small, yet lucrative company. Nestled in the heart of the bustling metropolis, the company, owned by the enigmatic and fair-minded Kofi, was a behemoth in its own right. Despite being a single-owned small company, it was worth millions, a testament to Kofi's business acumen and innovative spirit. It was here, amidst the hum of computers and the quiet confidence of its employees, that two men's paths would cross in a way that would change their lives forever. Javier, a senior colleague in the accounting department, was a man of impeccable integrity and a pillar of the company's financial team. With years of experience under his belt, he had earned the respect and admiration of his colleagues. He was a kind and trusting person, always willing to give others the benefit of the doubt. When Ryder joined the company, Javier took him under his wing, eager to mentor him and help him grow in his role, recognizing that Ryder would be his direct junior colleague, answering to him. In contrast, Ryder, a junior colleague who had just joined the company, was a man shrouded in mystery. With a charming smile and an air of confidence, he quickly won over his colleagues, who were drawn to his charismatic personality. But beneath the surface, Ryder was a complex and calculating individual, driven by a hunger for wealth and power. Ryder's background was a complex tapestry of deceit and manipulation, woven from the threads of a troubled past. His early years were marked by instability and upheaval, as he bounced from one foster home to another, never quite finding his footing. As he grew older, Ryder began to rely on his charm and charisma to get by, quickly learning how to manipulate those around him to achieve his own ends. Ryder had a certain allure to him, a spark in his eye that drew people in and made them want to believe in him. He was a master of reinvention, able to tailor his persona to fit whatever situation he found himself in. And so, when he applied for a position at Kofi's company, he was able to present himself as a confident and capable young professional, eager to learn and grow with the company. Ryder's charm and charisma quickly won over his colleagues, who were impressed by his supposed expertise and eager to welcome him into their ranks. He was a quick learner, able to pick up on the company's systems and procedures with ease. And he was a team player, always willing to lend a hand or offer a smile. But despite his polished exterior, Ryder's true nature remained hidden, a ticking time bomb waiting to unleash its destructive power. He was a chameleon, able to blend in seamlessly with his surroundings, all the while hiding his true intentions. Javier, oblivious to Ryder's hidden motive, taught Ryder with an open heart and a willingness to share his knowledge. Javier taught Ryder everything he knew, from the intricacies of financial accounting to the company's internal controls. Javier saw potential in Ryder and wanted to groom him into a valuable member of the team. But what Javier didn't know was that Ryder had a sinister motive for joining the company. Ryder's true intention was to steal the company's millions, and he saw Javier as the perfect pawn in his game of deception. As Ryder gained Javier's trust, he began to manipulate him, using his newfound knowledge to further his own nefarious agenda. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, Javier and Ryder's paths continued to cross, their working relationship growing more intricate and complex. But unbeknownst to Javier, Ryder had a hidden agenda, one that would ultimately lead to a web of deception, betrayal, and greed that would shake the very foundations of the company. The tone was set for a story of shocking revelations and unexpected twists, a tale of how the pursuit of wealth and power can lead even the most seemingly ordinary individuals down a dark and treacherous path. As the events unfolded, it would become clear that nothing was as it seemed, and that the truth was far more sinister than anyone could have ever imagined. In the midst of this high-stakes game of cat and mouse, Kofi, the company's CEO, stood watch and aware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. A fair and just leader, Kofi was respected by his employees, who admired his integrity and vision. But as the events unfolded, even Kofi would be forced to confront the harsh realities of the corporate world, where loyalty and trust were mere commodities to be bought and sold. As the months passed, Ryder's influence within the company continued to grow, and he began to weave a complex web of deceit and manipulation. With his charm and charisma, he had gained the trust of his colleagues, and he knew that he had to act quickly before his facade began to crumble. Ryder's plan was to manipulate the company's accounts, transferring large sums of money into his own account. He had been studying the company's financial systems for months, and he knew exactly how to cover his tracks. With his knowledge of the company's internal controls, he was able to create a series of complex transactions that would be difficult to detect. As Ryder began to execute his plan, he knew that he had to be careful not to arouse suspicion. He started by making small transactions, testing the system to see how much he could get away with. And as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, Ryder's transactions grew bolder, and the amounts of money he was stealing grew larger. But Ryder knew that he couldn't keep his scheme hidden forever. He needed a way to cover his tracks, to make it seem like someone else was behind the embezzlement. And so, he turned his attention to Javier's email account. Ryder had been watching Javier for months, studying his habits and his routines. He knew that Javier was a trusting person, and that he often left his email account open on his computer, and so, Ryder saw an opportunity. He began to use Javier's email account to send messages to the company's bank, requesting transfers of large sums of money into his own account. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, Ryder's scheme continued to unfold. He was stealing millions of dollars from the company, and he was using Javier's email account to cover his tracks. And Javier, oblivious to the danger lurking beneath the surface, continued to trust Ryder, and continued to believe that he was a loyal and hard-working member of the team. But the truth was about to come to light. Javier had been noticing some discrepancies in the company's accounts, and he had begun to investigate. And as he dug deeper, he discovered the shocking truth. Ryder had been stealing from the company, using his email account to cover his tracks. The moment of discovery was like a punch to the gut. Javier felt like he had been betrayed, like he had been punched in the face by someone he trusted. He couldn't believe that Ryder, someone he had taken under his wing, someone he had trusted with his life, could do something so despicable. As the reality of the situation began to sink in, Javier felt a wave of emotions wash over him. He felt angry, betrayed, and hurt. He couldn't believe that he had been so blind, that he had trusted Ryder so implicitly. And as he sat at his desk, staring blankly at the computer screen, he knew that he had to act quickly. He had to report Ryder's crime to the authorities, and he had to make sure that Ryder was brought to justice. Javier immediately called the police and reported the missing money. He told them about his suspicions regarding Ryder, and how he had been acting strangely in the days leading up to the disappearance of the funds. But to Javier's shock and horror, the police didn't believe him. Instead, they arrested him on the spot, citing the evidence of the transactions that had been made from his email account. Kofi, the company's owner, was stunned when he heard the news. He couldn't believe that Javier, a senior accountant and a trusted member of the team, could be capable of such a thing. He felt that Javier was trying to pin the blame on Ryder, and he couldn't understand why Javier would do such a thing. As a result, Kofi didn't lift a finger to help Javier. Instead, he allowed the police to take Javier away, and he didn't even bother to visit him in jail. Javier was eventually granted bail, but he was placed under house arrest, forbidden from leaving his city until the investigation was complete. Javier felt defeated and betrayed. 2 months after Javier's arrest, Ryder suddenly resigned from the company, citing personal reasons. His departure was met with a mix of relief and curiosity, as many of his colleagues were still reeling from the shock of Javier's arrest. Weeks later, Kofi decided to unwind at his favorite club, Hue. As he sipped his drink and chatted with friends, he caught a glimpse of Ryder from afar. Kofi's curiosity was piqued, and he asked around to see what Ryder was doing at the exclusive club. The answer he received only deepened his suspicion. Ryder, it seemed, had recently become a member of the club, a feat that seemed impossible for a mid-earning accountant like Ryder. The membership fees alone were exorbitant, and Kofi couldn't fathom how Ryder could afford it. Kofi's suspicions were now on high alert. He couldn't shake off the feeling that Ryder was involved in something shady. Determined to get to the bottom of the mystery, Kofi hired a private investigator to dig into Ryder's background. The investigator's findings were shocking. Ryder, it seemed, had been living a life of luxury, with exotic houses and mansions that he had recently purchased. The sheer scale of Ryder's wealth was staggering, and Kofi knew that he had to act quickly. With the evidence mounting against Ryder, Kofi decided to take action. He contacted the police and reported his findings, and soon Ryder was under investigation for embezzlement and fraud. The truth was finally beginning to unravel, and Kofi was determined to see justice served. The police interrogation room was a stark, sterile space with cold, gray walls and a single, flickering fluorescent light. Ryder, dressed in a crumpled suit and looking every inch the worried man, shifted uncomfortably in his seat as the two detectives, their faces stern and unyielding, began their questioning. At first, Ryder was confident, even cocky, spinning a web of lies and half-truths as he attempted to explain away the evidence that had been gathered against him. He claimed that he had been framed, that Javier had been the one to embezzle the funds, and that he had been innocent all along. But the detectives were not fooled. They had seen it all before: the desperate attempts to deflect blame, the feeble excuses, and the outright lies. They knew that Ryder was hiding something, and they were determined to get to the bottom of it. As the interrogation wore on, the detectives began to use psychological tactics to wear Ryder down. They would make him wait for long periods of time, only to return with a new line of questioning. They would confront him with evidence, watching as he squirmed and struggled to come up with a plausible explanation. And they would use his own words against him, pointing out the inconsistencies and contradictions in his story. Ryder, however, refused to crack. He continued to spin his web of lies, even as the detectives presented him with irrefutable evidence of his guilt. He claimed that the evidence was fabricated, that the detectives were trying to frame him, and that he was the real victim. But the detectives were relentless. They knew that Ryder was guilty, and they were determined to prove it. They continued to question him, to poke and prod at his defenses, until finally, after hours of interrogation, Ryder began to crack. At first, it was just a small crack, a tiny fissure in the facade of confidence and innocence that Ryder had maintained for so long. But as the detectives continued to question him, the crack grew wider, until finally, Ryder's defenses collapsed entirely. He slumped forward in his chair, his head in his hands, as the detectives watched in silence. And then, in a voice that was barely above a whisper, Ryder began to confess. The words tumbled out of him in a rush, a torrent of guilt and shame that had been building up for months. He told the detectives about the embezzlement, about the fake accounts and the hidden transactions. He told them about the lavish lifestyle he had been living, the expensive cars and the luxurious vacations. And he told them about the lies, the countless lies he had told to cover his tracks and avoid detection. As Ryder finished his confession, the detectives sat in stunned silence, their faces a mixture of shock and disgust. They had seen some terrible things in their time as detectives, but Ryder's crimes were something special. They were a betrayal of trust, a violation of the faith that had been placed in him. As the dust settled on the case, the consequences of Ryder's actions began to unfold. Javier, whose reputation had been unfairly tarnished by Ryder's deceit, was finally vindicated. The police investigation had cleared his name, and he was welcomed back to the company with open arms. However, the experience had left Javier shaken. He had been betrayed by someone he had trusted, and he had come close to losing everything. He was grateful for the support of his colleagues and the company's owner, Kofi, but he knew that he would never forget the pain and humiliation he had endured. Ryder, on the other hand, was not so fortunate. He was sentenced to several years in prison for his crimes, a fate that he had brought upon himself through his own greed and ambition. As he sat in his cell, he had plenty of time to reflect on the consequences of his actions. The company, too, was left to pick up the pieces and rebuild. The embezzlement had caused significant financial losses, and the company's reputation had been damaged by the scandal. However, under Kofi's leadership, the company was able to recover and emerge stronger than ever. As we reflect on the case, we are left with a thought-provoking question: how can we prevent similar cases of deception and betrayal in the future? Is it possible to create a workplace culture that values trust and integrity above all else? Or will there always be individuals like Ryder who are willing to do whatever it takes to achieve their goals? What lessons do you think society can learn from this case? Share your thoughts below. If you found this story compelling, please consider sharing it to spread awareness. Like this video, subscribe to uncover more true crime stories where deception and truth collide. Click here to watch another chilling case in our series.